Steering the conversation today, we have Amrita Lahiri. Amrita is a Kuchipudi dancer who began her journey as a student in USA. She did her Arangetram and also was a part of the program coordinator at NCPA Mumbai before she moved to Singapore. I request Amrita to introduce the other speakers and begin the discussion.
Thank you, Shivani. So nice to see everybody here. And it's too bad that Sanjukta couldn't be here today. And this is her brainchild and her baby, really, Beej Garage especially. And she says she's here in spirit. But we decided to, I think she decided to go ahead because it is a special honor to have Ileana Citaristi and Vidhya Subramanian, who are not from Mumbai, here, and they found dates in their busy calendars to be here tonight. And this is literally home for Sharma, Tripathi, and I'm happy to be sharing this platform with such accomplished and celebrated dancers this evening. And I do wish Sanjukta could have been here this evening, but she has been very much a part of the planning of this and discussing this, and we've been, sort of thinking about it for quite a while. We're covering many different forms this evening and different continents. So I'll start with Ileana Citaristi, who is one of India's foremost Odissi dancers. She refers to her journey as a tale of two births. While she was born in Italy, she studied philosophy of the East in Venice, and in her search for a physical expression and a rebellion against conservatism, she traveled to India, initially to study Kathakali. And then from 1979, she settled down in Odisha and made that her home. She is an expert in Odissi and also equally in Mayurpanch Chau. Ileana ji says she battled many stereotypes, of course, being both Italian and Indian, and she's had to fight prejudices from both sides. So, for example, the Italian government would not support her with grants because she's presenting Indian dance. And the Indian government will say, but you're not Indian, so how can we support you? So these are just some of the prejudices she has faced, but she's come with great courage and hard work, I think, through all of this, and is a Padma Shri awardee and one of the Vidhya Subramanian is a well-known Bharatanatyam dancer who divides her time between USA and India. She grew up in Chennai, where she says, alongside the fragrance of jasmine and the sound of temple bells, she says one could palpably taste the Tamilness in the air. And that was my India, layered with memories of festivals, but also accepted misogyny, colorful clothes, and blind classism, laughter, and insensitive political incorrectness. I think we're all familiar with some of these contradictions. All this changed when she landed in USA in 1990. And she describes her experience of living half the year in USA and half the year in India, and she says, like a pupa in a chrysalis, I incubate and ideate in the US, where my internal noise is loud in the presence of quiet all around. Anyone who's gone from India to the US will, first thing you feel like, oh my God, where's the noise, right? And then like a butterfly, she says, I come alive in Chennai, where my creative juices flow the most. I thought that was a beautiful description of how it is to live between these two very starkly different continents. Gauri, who is our host this evening, is a Kathak dancer for 3 generations. Her mother, herself, and her daughter in India and UK are both home for her. She has taught in the UK for over 14 years and developed some outstanding Kathak dancers there. She was artist in residence in the South Bank Center, where she was collaborating with sometimes a beatboxer, sometimes a poet, sometimes a cellist, cello, as we know. And she discovered a newness in her form there, a new courage, she says. She's a curator as well. She started the festival Alchemy in London, showing arts from across Southeast Asia. Gauri's work is wide-ranging. She was movement director of Escapade with 120 dancers performing around the South Bank Center. She was the first Indian classical dancer to perform at Westminster Abbey. She worked with Akram Khan and tours with her own company, which you're part of here now. Yeah. So our discussion today is intended for us to hear different perspectives. We have 4 different dance forms, actually 5. We have Kathak, Kuchipudi, Bharatanatyam, Odissi, and also Chow represented here. We have lived across several different continents. How does this migration across continents impact the process of creating dance? How does it change the way we teach and learn Indian dance when we're abroad or when we come back to India? Can these insights help us to understand how Indianness is defined? And that is relevant for all of us, whether we're living here or abroad. Indianness is a big question mark, especially in today's world, in today's political climate. That's a big one. Can this help us to be more conscious and clear in the choices that we make as performers, as teachers, as audience members, and as students of dance? So the question that first arises when we move across continents is, where is home? What is home? How do you define home? And I actually really dread the question of where are you from? I dread that question. So having set up home in several countries, personally for me, home has really become a practical concept rather than a sentimental one, honestly. It's where my bed is, it's where my kitchen is, it's where my kids are. However, there is something that draws me inexplicably towards India. Even though I grew up in the US and had the option to live there as an adult as well, I chose to live in India. 3 months ago, in August, my husband and I made a choice to leave the clean, convenient efficiency of Singapore to set up home in Mumbai with our 2 sons. And people thought we were crazy. They said, oh, maybe he's lost his job or it'll be okay. They were sort of telling me, commiserating, like, oh, it's okay, maybe it's for the best. I said, no, really, it is for the best. We're actually choosing to leave Singapore to go back to Mumbai. They couldn't believe it, So we really made that choice to live here. And perhaps it's because India is where my ancestors are from. Is it because it's the land from which the dance and music, which I love, have originated? I don't know. It is not the land of my childhood memories. It's not where I grew up, which was entirely in Washington, D.C. And yet it feels like home. Loving a land and feeling at home is really a bit like love. You can't really explain it. You can't rationalize it too much. And I also feel that one can't love Indian dance without loving India. One cannot love Indian dance without loving India, because it is a land, in all its magnitude, its chaos, its contradictions, its diversity, its filth, but also philosophy, its history, all of that. So we'll start with this idea of home and what is home. And we'll start with Ileana, and then Gauri and Vidhya can also answer the same question about home. And we start with Ileana because she says, home for me is not synonymous with comfort zone and motherland. And it does not necessarily mean birthplace either. Patriotism is a word which translates to nationalism. Home is an immense love towards a sense of belonging. The present is my home, and the present is made up of all the memories and experiences of the past without interruption. So the many homes merge into one. So it's such a beautiful way to say it, and so maybe we can start with Ileana about where is home, how do you define home?
Yeah. So you said it's not possible to love dance, Indian dance without loving India. And I think I'm an example in the sense that when I came 40 years ago, in 79, I thought that I will just take some movement of this dance which I had seen and utilize this movement in theatre, because I was doing theatre. So that was the plan. And when I came, I had a return ticket of 1 year, where we could utilize within 1 year. And for 6 years, I never went home. continuously. I never went back to it for 6 years. And even after 6 years, when I went back, it was just to perform Indian dance. I was, as I announced. So, yeah. What happened is that those movements, which I wanted to take away, they were not. They were related with so many other things around, and it was not just what I was learning technically, but I had to understand and absorb. I was absorbing. I didn't even realize that by living there in Odisha, of course it is an experience very much is India, but again we have to focus on the particular place from where this dance derives, because India is the vast continent. So everything was related. So I didn't even realize that it is slowly, it was a net which really was surrounding me, and every step was leading me to another one, and these 2 steps to a third one. So it became more and more the trap in which I was being caught. And whatever I was observing in my journey from the small Barsati where I was staying as a training to the Guruji's house, because my focus was to reach Guruji's house, whatever it was, rain, heat, whatever, it doesn't matter. I have to reach there. So on the way, whatever I was observing, it was, today this design is there, so mine must be Mangala Puja, must be Mangalabar, must be Tuesday. Then the shopkeeper will open the shop, and before opening the cash, will do the arrangement. Then I will reach Guruji's house, and the pujari is already there chanting some sloka, and which are the same one which we will dance as soon as Guruji comes in the class. And then Guru Ma will sit to do the chapati, to make the chandana, and it will be the same things that Guruji So all these things were all one world. So it was one world. So it was not that anything which was separated from the other. So this meant that India, as coming back to the beginning, it was supposed to be absorbed in total, not only. So this became my home. So basically, this is where the passion they developed, and it was correlated to whatever I was absorbing of the life, of the history, of the past and the present. And this correlation between art, artistic expression and life, daily life, was still alive. And this is the difference between, it was the difference between learning in the West, any Western dance or whatever, which would have been only relegated to the dance class, and outside you come outside and nothing is reflected anymore. The difference between there and here, because here, as I said, it was not confined to the dance class. Actually, the dance class was continuing on the roadside, is continuing in the houses, is continuing. So it was not confined. So this total experience was my home.
And now for you, I mean, you've made the choice to sort of live in Bhubaneswar continuously. You've never felt the need or desire to go?
No, after 6 years, when I was not going home, Guruji had to really throw me out of the class, not intentionally, it so happened that something happened between, for which he said, I don't know why, but I cannot teach you anymore. So at that point, I thought, okay, maybe I have a possibility to perform this art back in Italy, which I had already taught. No, I'm not going because I'm missing some classes if I go. But since this happened, so I went back, I performed, and when I came back after 1 month, all that upset and all these things had gone, and Guruji just asked me, "Are kya la program?" how it was. So it was again destiny that I was supposed at that point to reconnect in my original place, just to share what I had the fortune to have found here. So that became. I was eager actually after that to be able to go and perform this, because I could. I wanted to share. I wanted to, and my communication, my way of communicating was. It was maybe easier than any Indian dancer who would have had to talk in English, whereas I could talk in Italian. I could feel the pulse of what type of dramatization would have been better for this Italian blood and Italian lecture. But my intention, and I felt that there was a lot of ignorance and a lot of wrong impression that this dance would be maybe something like very slow. They were mixing up the idea of Indian dance with meditation, with exotic, with mysticism. So I always avoided absolutely those kind of places where to perform. So that was my choice, and I really wanted to put this dance in festival of dance, where together with maybe the previous day would be a company from the Bolshoi, the next day would be so festival of dance. So that was my ambition to present. It was not easy because the organizer didn't know, and that prejudices were there. And this elephant and snake idea of India was there in everybody's mind, and nobody knew this. So after seeing it, they would change. So maybe after showing it, some agent would also come and say, oh, this is very beautiful, we would like to take it up for the next season. But then everybody was realizing that it was so difficult to market it. So an agent cannot survive only by selling one or two performances. So they all, finally we always remain me and my mother, who was over there improvising themselves as an agent to contact this festival, but this was my ambition, and that was very important, because I realized that otherwise this dance would not have been appreciated the way it should have been appreciated. So this is the way I reconnected with my.
So for you, it was sort of a natural choice that home is Odisha, because your dance originates there, and you're saying that the classroom and the dance is permeating all around, that it was all part of life. So it was a natural choice that this was home.
Yeah, it was a natural choice. Also, it depends also from, I don't expect everybody to have the same experience. For me, the previous part of my life also, I had really searched a lot. And I had gone through both in the philosophy of life, in the physicality of life, in the rejecting all whatever my bourgeois upbringing which I had received, the Catholic upbringing which I had received from my parents, and so it was a rejection, a rebellion, and finding something else. So I found it at the end of a search, which was for more than 20 years. So and I went through the feminism, I went through the student revolution in the 70s in the college, and so I was always in the first line, and when the miniskirt came, I was the first one to wear it, and so hitchhiking all over, sleeping in the on the benches on the park, and trying all this sort of also the LED and Vidhya Garage and marijuana and all these things. So I really, I was very adventurous. I was not afraid. And the first time I came to India, it was in 1974 by land, by hitchhiking. So I came by Orient Express, and then by Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and I reached Amrita, and then so I took 1 month to come. So that was the time in which dance was not in the method. It was just leading the journey on the road, Jack Kerouac, those are the literature which Herman has so not planned. It was a non-planned trip and live the life every day as it comes. So expose yourself, come out from your comfort zone. I was the daughter of a big politician and a very, so I could have, like in Italy, like in India, I could have taken advantage of that. I could have been introduced to so many, I would have been an easy life. And I was good in school also. But I left everything and I put myself on the road. And I just faced life as it came. So that was my first trip. So then in 1978, I came a second time, this time in Kerala, because I had seen the Kathakali performance. And I thought that in my research in the theater for this physical expression, which I had started to do through Jerzy Grotowski and this kind of new theater which was coming out in Europe. So I thought that I could learn. I was searching for a grammar of the body, and I realized that Kathakali had such a detailed and systematic grammar. So this time I came for that purpose. And this Kathakali guru, at the end of the 3 months workshop, told me about Odissi. So I planned to come the next year in 79. And my plan was to do 6 months Odissi and 6 months Kathakali and go back. When I started with Gunji. That was the end, and that was the beginning.
So I think Vidhya ji will have a very it's an opposite journey that you had, because you grew up amongst the very Tamilnadu of Chennai and then moved to the US. So maybe you can speak about specifically about what is home and how do you define home.
Well, but as you were speaking, I was thinking, oh gosh, I want that life. For me, I grew up in Chennai, conservative family. I'm the only child. And dance was, everybody learned dance, everybody learned Bharatanatyam, and I was inspired by Dr. Vidhya Subramanian, so I started with her at the age of 8. And then she was too far away, and it was turning out to be difficult. So then she introduced me to Guru Radha, and he auditioned me and then said, okay, come, just ba, nalik ba. We started class. It was as simple as that. And later, I also went to Lahiri for Abhinaya lessons. So it was sort of this systematic, progressed along the learning. It was what everyone did. I was part of that journey, like most girls growing up in Chennai. And then Arangetram happened, and performances happened every month, 5, 6 performances. You get caught up in that, the whole excitement of it all. And sort of, it was at my Arangetram, until my Arangetram, I was quite a stubborn student. If Vadya said, that's what we call my Guru, Vadya, if he said smile, I would not. And so I was quite a stubborn child. And so my father said, we are stopping if she is not going to show promise. So Vadya took it up sort of as a challenge, and he said, okay, let's make this girl. He saw something in me, I guess. So put me on stage, and I went on stage, and as I was starting my Arangetram, it's when I think something hit me. I realized, gosh, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And maybe it is the performative aspect of it. It is that relationship with the audience, the energy that I felt. Whatever, I can't explain. At the age of 16, I have no clue what it was, but I said, this is what I want to do. And so I continued to do that for the next 5, 6 years in India, traveling to other countries, whatever, the usual, I had a solo trip to Russia, to Afghanistan, of all places, during the war, and several other countries. So all this happened, and then I think my mother got a little bit worried that I was not going to marry, I was just going to do dance. So she got a little worried, and so the first person that came along said he was interested in marrying me, I was off. And I had no clue at that point. This was in 1990 that I went to the US, and there was this sense of, I didn't even know what I was losing, right, when I went there. At that point, the plan was to come back in 3 years, come back. I did not want to go to the US at a time when everybody wanted to go there and experience the land of dreams and quality of standard of living or whatever and so on. I didn't want to go. And then I was there, and we were supposed to come back in 3 years. It's been close to 30 years now. I'm still there. So it's along the way, that marriage didn't work out. I'm in my second marriage now with a wonderful man. But somewhere in that journey, I mean, I started teaching. So at the age of, at a very young age, when I would not have thought had I been living in India, I started teaching. So you have to really understand how to communicate with these young kids who are, I mean, the age difference is hardly anything between me and them. So while in India, the reverence and the respect we showered our gurus with was very different over there. So it was sort of this conversational class attitude and very different. So I got getting used to all that happened, and before I knew it, I started with 5. Before I knew it, it was the usual, the American way of somehow dance schools just grow and grow and grow, and before I knew it, it was like 80, 100 kids. They were all arangetrams, and it became like this sport production factory. But at one point, as my daughters were growing up, they were transitioning into high school, and then I was thinking to myself, what's happening? Because a lot of the students who learned also left for college, and then never came back. So you put all this effort and energy and 100% in every class teaching so much, and then they're gone. And then what do? It's a void, and then you're left with again training whoever's left. So this continued, and I was thinking, where is this going? Right? So for me, I said, I remembering that arangetram where performance dance is where my love lies, and I would really be miserable about not doing it. So then my husband we were talking about it, and he said, you just want to do it, just do it. What are you complaining about? So then began the journey of transitioning back and forth, sort of this. I had to navigate motherhood, of course, along with transitioning the school into a phase where I was closing it down, and then come here and perform and reacquaint with the Indian scene, which had changed so much. Chennai had changed so much from when I had left it. And not that I've been coming back and perform, but not every year, right? So,
but you felt the need to come back to India.
I felt
perform
it strongly because one of the reasons is also that in Chennai they call it the Mecca and all that, but beyond that, this similar kind of problem is that in America, I am a local dancer. So this word local, which is very problematic for me, it's a local dancer, so therefore somehow you're not as good as the ones who come from India. And then I come to India and you're an NRI dancer. So, so you kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, Trishanku kind of feeling, right? So then I said, this is not working out. So then I started spending more and more time here, and just working along this, through all this, I was finding myself as a choreographer and understanding how my work was evolving, and so it's been that journey. So now we're at a point where I think the potential of moving back completely is very strong. It is. It's very strong. So I just feel completely alive, like that, the butterfly that I mentioned. I do feel that way the moment I land in Chennai, I am alive. I drive here. I do all. I live the complete life here. So it's just. I find that something in me just comes alive, and the creativity, everything changes. The way I move, the way I dance, and everything seems to change, and it's a very emotional feeling.
Yeah. So to answer this question about, I think it's interesting, and when I was hearing both of you speak, for me it has been a very different experience. For me, home has been where my dance has been. And I think when I took the leap of faith after I got married and I moved out from India, for me, home became giving home to others who were wanting to connect. And that became sort of a mission or sort of a sharing for me. So for me, when I landed up in UK, I was in Nigeria, then we moved to Switzerland, and finally London. Everyone said, oh, what a drab place, and it rains. And I said, oh, wow, it's monsoon. For me, it was Bombay monsoon. So candles, lights, that became home for me, because I knew I didn't have a choice.
I had to make that home for me. And the strength that I had, that I drew, was from my mother and my guru, from this home. So I knew there was a physical space which I belonged to, which was very strong, and I was strongly rooted to it. And therefore I could take that leap of faith and build home outside in UK. And in that discovery, when you go into a new place, you open a drawer, you find, oh my God, this was my grandmother's idol. Oh, here it is. So I rediscovered my dance. And every time I opened a new kukra or something, it gave me a different perspective. So for me, it was a relationship I restarted with my art form. And it was a very joyous moment of time because it was unknown. I didn't know I'm going to open this dabba. What's going to come out? Because it was a different desire. It was a site-specific piece which I was asked to create. So I said, okay, these are the tools I have. How do I create that? So for me, home became where my art was. I rediscovered it. It was within me and my body and where I went. The fragrance of from Lucknow, the itra I used, became the fragrance in London with my coats. So for me, those little fragrances, sights, and smells became my comfort zone within the frame that I started working. So that's how the Indianness for me was when I was there. And the journey back was very interesting because I gave so much of myself that I came to a point and I said, you know what? I want to bring the focus back on me. And that is what I felt as an artist, because I felt I was so drained giving. And I said, I want to bring the spotlight back on myself. So that was my reconciliation, to say I'm going to give up, keep some things running, but I'm going to come back home to where my guru is, train, retrain, rework, and bring back the urja, which is still so much within myself, to bring it out. So that's the two relationships I had with the geographical spaces of giving and making that home away from home for others who didn't have a home. And then finally being so sucked out and drained that I felt it was time for me to come back home and really reinvent myself and start my second or third innings. As a lot of the second innings are here. So that's the flavor in which I have navigated my journey.
So for all of us who have done this journey back and forth, I think one of the big questions, other than where is home, is who are you as an Indian classical dancer? Because when you go abroad and you say I'm an Indian classical dancer, like Ileana ji said, you think of elephants and snakes or mystical music and meditation. So what really defines an Indian classical dancer? There is some kind of stereotype. There's a stereotype here as well. I mean, in India also, when I dread it sometimes at parties when people ask me, what do you do? And I say, Indian classical dancer. And they say, which form? And I do kuchipudi. So, so I'm like, is it the one with the mask? It's the one from Odisha, right? I'm like, just stop now. Let me tell you. Anyway, it's from Andhra, by the way. But so while planning and discussing this cross-cultural conversation, we were talking about what is it that defines an Indian classical dancer, because when you go abroad and come back or do any sort of this kind of migration or movement, defining yourself and defining what you do becomes very stark. I mean, that becomes something you're forced to do this. You're not in your comfort zone. So Sanjukta Wagh, she spoke of her experience at Lahiri in London, and she said they had a course called Contemporary Clichés. And while other students were, rolling on the floor laughing at the so-called cliched contemporary dance patterns and movements that were so familiar to them, Sanjukta was awestruck because she'd never seen these before in India. So she said, that's amazing. And I said, and the others were just finding these too familiar. They had a totally different perspective. And during the same year, she says that she attended a kuchipudi performance at Sadler's Wells, which is the premier platform for dance in London. And it was a classical Indian dance performance. And this dancer got a standing ovation from the British audience. And she was totally, she found it stereotyped and cliched. And so these were totally opposite experiences for her. And I'm sure many of us have had this experience. And so it is really our frame of reference that shapes our definitions, our preferences, our choices as dancers and as audience. So in this context, we will talk a little bit about what this idea of Indian classical dancer is. What is this definition? And I'll just tell you a little bit about what I thought about it, which is that it just conjures up images of a glittering costume, thick makeup, spiritual divine music, ancient temple rituals, and so forth. Some people think we are even dancing pieces the same way that they were done 500 years ago. They don't even know that things are being created every day. So it's like a pickled, preserved cultural artifact, especially abroad, I think, I have places. And so what are the expectations of this role of Indian classical dancer that you embrace, and which ones do you challenge? What are the expectations of this role, this stereotype that you embrace, and which ones do you challenge? I don't know who wants to start. I mean, this is just an open discussion. So whoever wants to sort of begin at this stereotype.
A little bit I had told before that I had to break through certain already preconceived idea of
Can you speak a little louder? They can't hear the back.
Can you all hear?
They can't. Can you all come a bit forward? There is space. Can you move a little forward? It's raining.
You mentioned about monsoon.
this is cyclone.
I think if you move, we can pull the chairs forward. Sorry, Ileana, please, as I could just see that sit there.
Just get it.
So many people.
It's fine, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. It is, I look great. I think it's wonderful. We all have it up there.
It's wonderful.
Those who can sit down, come forward. Next time we'll organize in a bigger space. We'll try and get a bigger space.
So Ileana,
Yeah. So as I already mentioned before, that I had to face a preconceived idea of what they thought about India, and I have to present. I'm talking about now the first. Maybe in the 80s, 90s, so not very recently, the first time that I was going back. So that time I could have presented, because in 85, here, there was an East-West dance encounter. I don't know how many are aware of that, which was organized by Gauri, the Max Muller Bhavan director at NCPA. And there it was for the first time maybe that dancer from the West and dancer from India, they were meeting and exchanging, and for that particular, for the second East-West dance encounter, we had been told to choreograph something new. So that was the occasion in which Chandralekha presented Amrita and Kumudinda presented it was the first, the first creative trend of contemporary creation. So I choreographed Eco and Narcissus in Chow. So for me that was the synthesis between what I was interested before, my interest in the Greek mythology, in psychoanalysis, and a new form of expression which I had been found in India. This time it was Chow. So this synthesis between the two things which had remained parallel in my Italy, while I was in Italy, my philosophical search and my physical expression, these two got together in this first choreography which I did. It was an experimental choreography piece. So, but when I started to go back from 86 to present dance there, I was more keen in presenting the traditional and not the experiment. Because I thought that, okay, first of all, if I was starting to show the Chow movement, they may have thought that maybe it was a ballet wrongly done. Because because the Chow has a lot of legs. I don't know how much of you know Chow, but leg elevation and all these things, which they can do much better because it is belonging to another style. This is another type of style. But not knowing the origin, the traditional, and to present immediately something which was already beyond that, or the extension of that. So I was very keen in presenting something very traditional and with the maximum explanation is possible, and even putting Jagannath on stage, because when I was referring to it in my to give an idea of the I wanted to present it, as I said, in dance platform, but I wanted to present it as it is. I mean, it is physical work, it is technical, but it has a content, it has a story behind it, has a mythological, philosophical content. So all these aspects that I wanted to give. So it was important to create also that the reference point which I could. So for me, to present the traditional was more important to present the experiment. So that was one of my main preoccupation when I was presenting it there.
I had a similar experience in Singapore as well. There was once, just a few months ago, a dancer came who presented very abstract work, a very top Kathak dancer from India, and the audience was kind of, what is this? I don't understand. And then there was some very cliched, what seemed to me very cliched Odyssey program, with the Krishna figure in the back, and the feather, and the, all these loud voiceovers and all of that, which we're familiar with, and it was telling me the obvious, and the audience loved it. So this is a very standard way.
Yeah,
but how do you challenge that, or should we challenge that? I don't know. So what do you?
Well, I think see, when I went to California, it was already there were already a lot of dance schools established there, so it was not an alien concept that I had to introduce, but it was still very contained with the Indian diaspora, right? So it's still, I think even now, it's not reached the mainstream as much as it should. However, it's gotten a lot better. At that time, it was just non-existent. It was only contained within the Indian diaspora. But even within that diaspora, even within that population, I think there was the expectation that Indian dance be presented the way they saw it when they left India. So in a time warp, in that 80s or whenever each family left at a different time. So when they brought their kids to me to learn, it was with this sense of, I saw so and so perform. What style do you teach, and who is it? So I want to learn it like that, and so that, and even it got to a point where, while I was discovering myself as a teacher, I myself was sort of winging my way through this in the beginning. But it got to a point where there was even resistance to teach Shringaram pieces to teenagers. So growing up, I had learned all of them from Kalanivami, and it was not a big deal. And these kids knew everything. It was not, the parents were just delusional about it. It was like, so I would get resistance to, and it had to be like Kirtanam, Bhakti, but that. So it was sort of, I had to kind of work a little bit against and slowly introduce the idea of Shringaram, and that it's okay, it's all a part of life, it's beautiful. And this process continued. So I think, and then over time though, I have seen the evolution happen in the US. I want to say it's vastly different from when I started in 1990, right? So there is a lot of wonderful work going on, whether it is in the traditional, classical dance area or contemporary art classes, using the mediums, different mediums, classical mediums. But I'm seeing a lot of really thought-provoking, thoughtful work, and that to me is redeeming. It's beautiful to see that. So there's a hope. There's definitely hope, and so Indian classical dance, as I see it there, I think has a lot of hope, and it cannot be written off anymore as NRI dance. Yeah.
I think I come from there is, so when I start talking, this will be louder. I found it, in fact, I'm talking from my experience. So when I went to UK, I did my traditional chumris, abhajan, the tarana, the repertoire that I came through. So that was the journey I took on. what is really interesting that every time people say, okay, have program notes, the whole concept of program notes was not here. People will understand we're doing Krishna, so they knew this was Krishna. But outside, we had to make program notes. So that was a big ceremony. We had to really deconstruct each idea, put it in a way that it's not too flowery language, it's got a practical way. So that was a journey I embarked on. And then also in terms of teaching, we did a similar thing, but something I found very liberating in that whole process was how would you articulate a very dense art form? I think Sheila ji would agree now that she's working in the US also. How would you translate a lot of things that we just imbibed? We watched and we saw. And how will you translate that when you're teaching the process to a young kid who perhaps sees a temple and puja done in a very mechanical way? What is bhakti? What is separation? Those emotions that we generally in India are very open about, and we explore it, we see it all around us. How would you translate those in that was again a very interesting challenge for me. So one was that capsule, and the other was when as an artist I wanted to fly. So that's when my journey started happening with Ankh. And a lot of contemporary dancers. I didn't train in contemporary dance, but again it's a thought process. But you apply the concept of watching the same thing with a different lens. And that's where the shift happened. And that questioning started in my system. So one was where I was doing my traditional dance form. When I was creating work, I was being brave in pushing the boundaries of our classical methodology and our physical language in order to challenge and really thrust it in the open contemporary space of Samuel's Wells, for that matter, by Fredime in Paris. So that's where my juggling started, which was, I thought was quite intoxicating in the process of also performing. And that's where my form sort of not changed, but it became a combination of very much physical.
Is it true that the stereotype is less than it became here in the US or because there's more, I think you were able to push the boundaries and were you still up against the stereotypes or is it less?
I think it is less because I think predominantly the kids who are coming were from East Africa and West Africa. So they were the kids, and of course the British girls also trained, but they will not. I think in Bharatanatyam they were much more of set rules and principles, whereas Kathak still had a very organic way of translating. So that I found was, so I was not really pushed around to say that this is exactly what you had done and you would like them to look into that. So there was a little bit of freedom in the way we navigate that space.
Maybe we're talking too much. Project.
But one of the things that
And also the rainbows.
that Gauri ji said, which actually takes us kind of to another topic, is about how she was explaining very dense material in classical Indian dance to students who are not familiar with, for example, temple rituals or Shringar, or for me, for example, in the US, I was learning Kuchipudi. So at my entire childhood training from age 6 to 16 in Kuchipudi was in America, and with a wonderful teacher named Amrita, and she still continues to teach and brings out some of the best Kuchipudi dancers there are, not just in India, but like she's one of the best. So she was very strict, and we were imitating at that time whatever she told us to do. So if it was Krishna Chandra, everything was Yadupam Krishna Chandra, that little you have to do that. The kids would be like, I was like a 12-year-old or something, and I was like, what is this little thing? But they had to do it. And it was so, and I really struggled with it initially. Then later, a lot of work, Milaka. So later it's become easier. So how do you do that? I mean, how do you deal with that, explaining to audiences or even especially with students? Does the pedagogy change? Does how you teach change? Does how you explain things change? Can you speak a little bit about that? Maybe you start because you just mentioned that. So
I can have quite a few controversial things here. And it's interesting because when I was working with the young girls in London, they didn't question, and I'm bringing this Radha Krishna Chedchad. Okay, so they didn't question. And this is because a lot of the students are here at the moment, some of the young girls here with me. So at that time it was very much easy. Kandha mein to se hari, chodo sari. Dagare chale to dekho sham, kar gayi, to it's fine, you know. It was a method in which they sort of embraced it and they not imitated but understood, accepted it and they did it. The challenge was when I opened the box here, the young girls here in the class, they're present here also, and they questioned कि Gauri ji, how can you saying that चूड़ी कर लागे और आप blood दिखा रहे हो कि उसने हाथ में जोर से पकड़ा. This is so it was very interesting because how would I explain to them? तो ये हम लोग की क्लास में बहुत बड़ा एक डिस्कशन हुआ, which was titled Radhika. Radha ki unveiling as radical thought process, and how do you bring that? And I allowed that discussion because I think it's important for the younger generation. We have constantly surrendered, and that brings to the point of a constant surrender. We never questioned. I never questioned my mother ki. In fact, I questioned, अच्छा तो कृष्णा कितना बड़ा होगा जब उसने ऐसे किया? कृष्ण की और कौन सी ठुमरियाँ हैं जिसमें कृष्ण छेड़छाड़ है? तो किस तरह से छेड़छाड़ किया? That means how old is he? किस ढंग से? तो ये सवाल हम लोग पूछते थे. We never question कि क्यों किया और इसको दिखाना ज़रूरी है, इसको दिखाना अनिवार्य है. So that is the question which came because all our ठुमरीज are about छेड़छाड़. All our ठुमरीज चूनर खींचा, चोली खींची. All these content is very different now. So for me, Amrita, that is where the first time we had this dialogue about surrendering, which we surrendered, and my mother is here. She said we never asked Guruji, we never questioned him. हमने सीखा. Whereas this generation has been challenging. So it's interesting. So sometimes we have taken the step forward, and I have now said, okay, let's look at the chedchad in a different way. But content we can't change. The thumri structure we can't change. क्या उसको हम दूसरे ढंग से देख सकते हैं. So that's my present conflict, and it's good because we are growing. We are also growing in understanding the old work coming in the present context, and I think there is no harm in those questions being thrown at us. So that's.
Did you convince them then?
I have not been able to convince
them because you need to end up the day convince them.
No, so I'm not.
Convince is the other question.
Yes,
Exactly. Right? The bigger question is, do we need to continue that narrative, and where did the narrative come from? Right?
So, because this whole Me Too was happening, it was so alive at that time that हमने भी कभी सोचा नहीं इसके बारे में कि पहले कभी लगता था when we did in the West, when we danced, चूनर चोली, थोड़ा अटपटा लगता था because our छेड़छाड़ is no longer like that. But we understood the context. But when we were teaching, I found it a little uncomfortable sometimes dealing with this. So I said, okay, let's work on tarana. Let's do more of nritta element. Let's do more of, and therefore my dance, my journey went a little bit more physical because it was an easy entry point. Or we went into the narrative of Shiva, who I find absolutely fascinating because that iconic representation doesn't happen much in Katha. So then I moved towards different ways of looking at it.
We see that in Kathak, and I apologize for saying that, but yeah, that it is tending towards more physical. But in Bharatanatyam, somehow there is some way to retain that abhinaya and more of the, like, aren't there other thumris that you can do, or aren't there other compositions you can do? Sorry.
Yeah, I just want to add that the historical context of Kathak is very different from Bharatanatyam or Odissi. So a lot of, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of the probably pre-Mughal compositions are no longer danced anymore, right? So we don't have a lot of, as we were talking earlier, we don't have a lot of Rudra, Vivatsa, most of the things that is done in Kathak is Shringara. And Shringara is also within the context of a court context, which is the courtesan dancing to, sort of entertain the people there. So that's where the thumris have come from. But we are dancing in a very different context, and especially when you take that then to a global context, it completely changes. So how do you then interpret it within the context of women's rights, of violence, abuse, all of that completely changes. And I think the Beej Garage had a session on the Me Too movement where this came up too quite a lot.
And I think, sorry. So my challenges were two challenges as I was teaching the kids, right? One was the Sakhi. So there are kids growing up, they're very comfortable, obviously talking to the opposite gender. And so the first question was, why do I need her? Why do I need this Sakhi to carry my message and go tell this guy? I'm just going to go tell him myself. So that was my question. I said, oh my goodness, that's a valid question. So now what do I do with that? But she's there, right, in all our conversations. And Swami, I told you about Sakhi. Sakhi, yeah, how do I do away with her? So she's there. So, okay, let's learn this, let's navigate this gradually. The other challenge was coyness, shyness. What is that? I don't know. So just the act of, that or that was like, auntie, what is that? I don't know how to do it. So it was very difficult to instruct. Those two for me were big challenges. But what I found was, as I continued teaching, as my students also matured, they were growing older with me, I found myself questioning how I approached the Nayika, how I approached Sringaram, how I approached. I am very comfortable in both. I mean, I work in the Margam as well as Contemporary Contrast. In both areas, I'm very comfortable. But when I'm approaching the Margam now, my Nayika is a very different Nayika. So I feel like I've learned so much from teaching these students of mine. So that my Nayika is now, I think she has this bold, I do away with the Sakhi quickly in the beginning of the Varna. Maybe she's there because it's there in the lyrics. But beyond that, it's my conversation with this universal energy and with how do I navigate that and how do I am the bold woman that I am telling you how I feel about you. So I don't feel the need to use a go-between, or that's one small aspect, but there are so many other ways I feel I have taken back from these kids and learned and incorporated into my own dancing, apart from of course the teaching part of it as well. So to me it's been sort of that journey, back, but I don't think, and now I work with dancers who are, I don't teach children as much anymore, but I work with dancers who are more serious, who are taking it forward. And with them, it's a real conversation. It is a real, the entire, what women's place is today, and everything comes into our conversation. So it is work that's created around conversation rather than I'm teaching you, you take this, whatever I have to say.
Can I ask, Ileana,
just wanted to make, there is another aspect also how Indian dance has been looked at. Through this ISTA, for example, International School of Theatre Anthropology. So where I've been called, and it is theatre, but this traditional dance, traditional form from India, from Japan, from Indonesia, they were called as trainer, some of the gurus. And in those situations, the particular dance, let us refer to Indian dance for example, I was there as one of the trainers in two of the ISTA sessions. This is originated by this Eugenio Barba, who is one of the new theater directors after Jerzy Grotowski, where the physicality in theater has become much more important than just the acting to the words. So in that sessions, I was supposed not to teach Odissi, but to analyze, like when we sit in Tribangi and we shift from one Tribangi to another, where is the center, the energy, how the weight shift, what is their feet, how the position of the foot on the ground is balancing the entire body posture, and what is the difference, like I was doing a workshop together with one person from Argentina, who was in their dance was using the foot part in another way. So to compare the two. So this is another way in which in the West, it's a particular way, of course I'm not talking about teaching one item, but this is also something which can teach us back when we are coming back, and instead to just executing things, to be more aware of what is happening in our body, because after all our dance also derives from diagrams. And there is a vertical, there is an horizontal, there is diagonal. So now we are not referring anymore to those. We are just doing it. But this helps us to go back to the fact that our also is a scientific way because all this sculpture has been sculpted on those diagrams. Silpa Prakasha and all this Alasakanya and which we did. So this is a little bit a scientific way which maybe can be useful for teaching, especially now to the new generation, where all this questioning maybe it is arising. Before it was not, because we were not questioning our guru much. But now it's a time in which we can recover, because sometimes the West is teaching us something which we have lost. I'm talking me as a Indian.
I wanted to ask you, what you're saying about the principles, that you can find different principles within
within the body. So in terms of lines, in terms of energy, in terms of shifting of weight, which we are not explaining in that way. We are just, the guru, what was we? Pushing
But I wanted to ask you, when you learned as an Italian, a young Italian girl coming to India to learn, did Guruji teach you differently? Because you were a foreign student.
No.
So did he teach you differently?
No.
How did you learn?
Only thing that I was questioning much more.
And he allowed it?
Yeah, he allowed it because he liked that. Sometimes he was throwing me out of the class because I was asking too much, but he liked to be questioned. Because he was, for him also it was enriching himself with answering, so he was challenged. So, and I was always questioning. I had to understand first with my mind, and then if I was not convinced with my mind, I would not do that movement. So every time I was questioning something which the other girls, Oriya girls were not doing. So that was, so he was challenged by that, and but he tolerated it.
But you found all those expressions and the coyness and all of that, because Guruji's items were also very specifically set, just like Venkateswarana Satyam's items.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fixed.
I was finding that fascinating.
Oh, you like?
Yeah, fascinating. And expression is maybe because we Italian, because here we talk about West and East, but America is different. Europe is different. Italy is different. The knowledge of these things is different. More Indian people are there, less Indian people are here. So it's a lot of differences. So we Italian are very passionate. So all the expression and all this thing, gesticulation, very it's very rich. So this part of the Abhinaya was never a problem for me. More difficult for me was the rhythm, the tal. Because although I learned a little bit of piano, and then in my childhood I did a little bit of ballet, and I was keeping the tal very well, but our tal is 1, 2, 1, 2. And here I came with all these intricacies and all these things. But then again, I always remember that I was feeling a little bit scared about this complex tala system. And then one day I was trying to keep with my hands, and my foot was going on its own. And Guruji said, why you are struggling? See? It is there. Bastard. Did the trick, and now I don't know. So, but this was the aspect which was more difficult for me, not the expression. So all the expression, and that was, I got it easily.
We have about 15 minutes left, so we'll open it up a little bit.
Yes.
And I think